Well, good morning and welcome to today's episode. Um, it, we talked yesterday about Adrotica's call, and I had time to think about it. And I knew when Al was going to call, I was needed to talk to him and somehow find a diplomatic way to relate to him the things that Erotica was disturbed about. And I had the night to think about that, so I was well prepared for Al's call the next morning. However, when I started that, things started to go south, and I'll talk about that later. But I wanted to talk a minute about the whole start of the relationship. If you remember, it was kind of love at first sight when Al and Erotica met on the stairway to the private plane, the jet, and then things developed from there. And then the romantic. Once Erotica had taken him to the dinner and had to break the news about his house burning down and his wife being found burnt to a crisp, along with her lover, thought to be Al, also burnt to a crisp beyond identification. And then the evening that she spent being quite, she knew a lot about psychology, so she was careful to break it to him. And then she was also experienced in grief counseling. So, what better person could he be with that evening at dinner? But in the touching the hands, and then the embrace at the apartment when they got back, and then things developed from there. And then that was about 5 days into their relationship, and then 9 days after their relationship, the implant had begun to develop, and Al's brain was accelerated along with his sensory awareness, and she could obviously tell that their encounters bounced up to a whole new level. And then why shouldn't she, an excellent candidate herself, be implanted? And I remember telling you about that, where she took the flight, and then when she arrived back at the private hangar in the L.A. airport, Al had arranged a wedding ceremony, complete with a groomsman from the, and then the groomsman from a passenger in the Mercedes SUV, and then the driver was actually a reverend and performed the ceremony. And then you had the co-pilot aboard the jet being Erotica's bridesmaid, and then they had the complete wedding gown, with the colors of maroon and robin's egg blue, and okay, so that's really lovely. But so they then, after a few days in L.A., they retired to the resort in northern coast. Think about Santa Barbara, even north. Think about Silmar, because the whole thing started with the cochlear implants and the people that I knew from my pacemaker company when it folded, going out there for jobs. So they were the first people that developed the interface between electronics and the nerve cell, the audio nerve in the brain. And Elon Musk bought that company and took off with Neuralink, but there were a few engineers that were recruited. And since this resort is nearby, I can imagine that some of their top talent was enticed and then the resort itself that I'm talking about. Think about it. It's what do they call, secured? Okay, because there's a jutting rock out on the northern part, another jutting rock on the south part. Plenty of security cameras. A 24-hour security man, looking at the cameras, taking a walk on the beach. And then the rest of the area, I think, is obviously a 12-foot chain link fence with razor wire up above, but it's carefully landscaped so it's inobtrusive, because from the highway, it's a long driveway, and that's also guarded by cameras. and a gateway to get in. I remember that. And then you go to the main building, which is a sizable lodge. And then Al and Erotica have their own, penthouse apartment with a balcony overlooking the beach. And then the full restaurant facility, in what would be known as an upscale five-star hotel. And then, like, is it just Al and Erotica or what other couples? And then if you think about the Manhattan Project, where they recruited the top scientists and engineers, put them in Los Alamos along with their families. So I suspect that the rest of this hotel facility is occupied with the families of the engineers and scientists. And it only takes about a dozen guys, girls, and who's ever top in their field. And it takes a spectrum of people that are really the most expertise in putting all this together. But yeah, 12 will do, and 12 could stay there with their families. They could even have their kids, in the playground. It looks, it looks like just any other really upscale, very expensive, very exclusive resort. Yeah? Okay, let's leave it there. And then the whole honeymoon thing. Okay, so it seems delightful that Al and Erotica, after the LA implant and a few days there with medical supervision, would go to the resort up north. And then, the whole, it's called a honeymoon because the early couples were to go off for a full moon period, which also corresponds to a full menstrual period. And the whole idea was that she would come back pregnant. And then it's been my personal experience having 7 kids that the next morning, you can tell that there's just a change in the energy between, often she'll spring forth and do a whole bunch of household tasks and be quite energetic for the first 3-5 days, and then it starts to fade after that, and it gets a few more days where you can't do anything right. I mean, nothing is okay, nothing is adequate. And a lot of couples break up in that first month not knowing that there's a pregnancy, and then 3-4 months later she says, I'm pregnant. What do we do? We broke up. I was really mean to you. I was just terribly behaved angrily. So I think there's a bit of that dynamic going on because Al is in the situation and Erotica's complaining to me. I got to explain this to Al, but he was busy talking to me about what's going down in San Diego because I mentioned the first 4 couples. They've already been through this cycle of their implant, and they go down to San Diego now that the implant's fully mature and their brains are accelerated, and they're able to take in large amounts of information just through their 5 senses. And then down in San Diego, there's the whole idea that it'd be a sensory expansion and an increase of the broadband so that now you could interface with the internet, not just through a keyboard or voice or Siri, yeah. But you could actually you could have an interchange with the internet mentally. Elon Musk right now not just him, but several others. They do the implant by drilling the hole through the skull, which is just that's brutal. That's anyway. But they're able to operate limbs, arms and legs by just changing their thoughts and thinking about it, and not the way you think about moving your arms and legs. But after some training and experience, they can move these by thinking in a different way. So that's the idea down in San Diego. But other things are happening there, and that's what Al had learned about this because they were at a table, Al and Erotica, it's got to be beautiful having a wonderful dinner served to you with a glass window overlooking the Pacific and watching the sundown. But they're not the only ones, and it would be natural that if you're staying at an upscale resort area, that the dining room to be filled. And then Al is telling me that he's overheard some conversations at another table that these nanobots, and I think I've explained that to you, they're a 7-molecule nanobot, with the first molecule being magnetically sensitive, so that the nanobots with a strong magnetic field can be located, in this case in the brain first, but you could conceivably, if you had a bad knee, put a strong magnet, because the other two molecules in the nanobot, they deal with increasing the nutrients coming into the cell, and also increasing the amount of waste material that can be taken out of the cell. And then you have another couple, a pair of nanobots that go into the nucleus and unfold the DNA with an RNA zipper, and then do a spell check on the DNA. And then you have, I forget what the last two molecules are. But anyway, what they were talking about is the San Diego first 8, the cells all over their body. First of all, the nanobots, even though they're intended, like the RNA COVID virus is intended to stay in one place, but those little nanoparticles in the vaccine, kind of go all through the system. And these nanobots, even though they're intended to remain in the brain, they tend to get dislodged or go other places in the system. So what they're experiencing down in San Diego is that the rest of the cells in their body are becoming invigorated, and with the correction of the DNA, cell replication, the new cells that are being replicated, rather than being degraded. That was the other two pairs in the 7 molecules. We have a natural process in our cells where there's kind of an aging, or the more copies you make or the more replications you make, there's a gradual decline. So those last 2 molecules in the 7-molecule nanobot were designed to end that decline, so that the main idea was, in the beginning, was so that the nerve cells in the brain, when they replicated, due to the brain plasticity, I finally got that one right, plasticity, the new neurons that would develop would not have an aging degradation. But now what they're talking to at San Diego is that these nanobots have gotten loose, gone to other organs, other places in the bodies, and their bodies, instead of growing older, are kind of growing younger. Okay, wow. So with all that, I really didn't have a chance to tell Al much about Erotica's problems. Or maybe she is at that stage where no matter what he does, it's going to be wrong. And so maybe the next thing that needs to happen is Erotica take a pregnancy test. Thanks for listening in today. I'll keep you posted. Okay, bye-bye.